Мы уже приступаем к содержательной части нашего сегодня сессии. У нас
So now we're starting our thematic session. And the name of the session is Challenges and Opportunities for Education Amid the COVID-19 Pandemic. My name is Julia Levin. I work for KIX EAP. I'm a co-organizer of this conference, and I'm also a manager of a project within the KIMS research program, and I coordinate the activities of KIX in Germany. Today, we're going to dedicate our sessions to education amid the COVID-19 pandemic, because the pandemic has, of course, complicated seriously the education process at schools, and actually overnight the governments of many countries ordered the educational facilities to stop offline education and demanded shifting to online or distance learning, and our colleagues previously spoke about that, but generally 1.2 billion children stop visiting school as a result. And the COVID-19 pandemic actually raised certain challenges for which nobody had been prepared, and there had been no guidelines for such a force majeure case. So our facilities has to change their procedures very fast, had to respond to COVID-19 adequately. And of course, that was a real force majeure for the teachers. They had to very quickly adapt to this constantly changing situation then. And of course, there are still a lot of questions that are pending. First of all, this is the question of how to make internet technologies available and accessible to all children, and how we can still continue developing critical thinking in the children, as well as other skills that would be useful for the 21st century. And can we use the challenges and the experience of the pandemic, and as well as the e-learning approaches, in order to revisit the education approaches, both teaching and learning approaches. So we want to discuss these questions with our colleagues. So we have our colleagues from Kyrgyzstan here, as well as from Mongolia and Kazakhstan. We also have Assel Myrzakhmetova, who is going to present on the experience of Kazakhstan. We also have here Iva Perković from the Center of Educational Policy, who is going to present an overview of the situation in 15 countries. And then Tamta Grigolia from Georgia is going to share the experience of Georgia with us. So now I want to give the floor to Almagul Osmonova to present on the situation in Kyrgyzstan. Yes, thank you very much, Julia. Dear participants, I want to greet you from Kyrgyzstan. I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to speak to the first KIX EIP International Conference on Educational Policy and Innovation. My name is Jyldyz Doolbekova, and my colleague Almagul Osmonova and myself are going to present on the topic of approaches and measures in education amidst the pandemic in Kyrgyzstan, and Mongolia, and Tajikistan. So these are the results of a desktop research carried out in the frame of the Tallinform education and research effort. So today, it is already evident that the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in serious systemic changes in the educational system all over the world. The schools were closed down, the e-learning started, and that actually created very serious challenges for the educational systems in our countries. Like, for instance, last year in Kyrgyzstan and Mongolia, schools were fully or partially closed down. In Tajikistan, long-term holidays were announced for all school kids, and again, you can see it from the slide that it affected actually several millions of kids. And distance learning or online learning actually was the only method at that time to ensure continuous education. But also online education identified certain gaps in the educational system and called for changes in the quality and techniques of education. And of course, online education also deteriorated and deepened the gaps and the differences. Specifically, it resulted in inadequate access to the internet, the lack of digital and electronic literacy among the children, the teachers, and the parents of the children. We also faced inequality in the access to quality education in all the countries, and especially it affected distant regions, specifically areas populated by ethnic minorities and others. And that actually called for the revisiting the educational policy in the countries. In Kyrgyzstan, after the quarantine was on, the digitalization of the educational process went really fast. They create e-libraries, multimedia portals were created by the government in partnership with local and international companies. Special training was provided for teachers. Of course, that situation raised a lot of questions about the quality of the quickly generated materials. But again, the situation mostly affected distance schools in distance areas, vulnerable families, vulnerable communities. Also, some children didn't have time to attend online teaching and learning process because they had to help their households, their parents in doing some farming and home chores. So our study actually showed that in areas where teachers face with more serious challenges, we could see more cases of self-mobilization, volunteering from the expert community, from the IT specialist community, who actually volunteered to train the teachers in using the technologies, applications, creation of video lessons. Also psychological support was provided to teachers, parents, and school children. Similarly, the situation was pretty similar in Mongolia. Also, video lessons were actively recorded to be broadcasted on TV. Electronic resources were created and uploaded to the educational online platforms. Unfortunately, many the children from families living in rural areas were most affected by the process, and they actually lost access to education at that time. Hundreds of teachers were mobilized to offer their support to training children from such communities. Also, we could see lower results, educational results, and quality educational results among vulnerable communities, communities of ethnic minorities. And again, some teachers volunteered to cover about 15,000 children from ethnic minority groups in the country. Also in Tajikistan, we could see that international donors also helped create TV, television lessons, still the terrain in Tajikistan and the number of distanced, hard to access areas in Tajikistan are more widespread than in Mongolia and Kyrgyzstan. That's why we had more severe impact on the quality of education. And we could see that even fewer boys attended schools than girls, because boys were involved in again, in farming and agricultural activities, and girls actually quit school because of early marriages, which is also a process. And Tajikistan, similar to Kyrgyzstan and Mongolia, recognize the importance of the digitalization of the educational system, improving the technology. And of course, there was a huge gap between these countries and the countries where the technologies had been in the focus previously. With your permission, I will continue. I will continue about the goal of our project, of the research. So in May this year, Tallinn Forum started to implement a large-scale research project to investigate into the distance learning process to improve the quality and access to education in the three countries of Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Mongolia. The objectives included improvement of the quality and accessibility of the education, online education for different groups of children. And our survey questions focused on the specific features of vulnerability of different groups, including school children living in distant areas, boys and girls, including those from ethnic minorities. And also another key question was to identify the innovation opportunities in each of the countries. So what are our preliminary outcomes? So the strategies of distance education turned out to be very heterogeneous between and within the countries, depending on a number of objective and subjective factors. So vulnerability depends on the digital infrastructure, on the physical infrastructure, on the management, education management, and on teachers' competencies. Innovative practices in online education also depend and are formed under the influence of different factors, social, cultural. We could see deterioration and aggravation of already existing factors that actually affected the access to education, as well as appearance of new factors. We could see that not only the way of conveying the knowledge in education was changed, but also the methodological approaches were changed. The role of the teacher changed. And that called not only for technological changes, but also for the changes in the approaches and methodology of education. Now, regarding the real situation in the education in all the three countries, actually there are deeper, more comprehensive problems that go beyond the technological problems only and include management, capacity building, digital literacy among teachers and students, development of online resources in the local languages, and a lot of other questions. And again, we believe that it is necessary to change the educational system from the declarative type of systems to the implementation type systems. We need to generate and implement a new kind of knowledge, new forms of knowledge. We need to build the potential for creating a high quality and accessible environment, educational environment for all the groups of the society, for all the communities. And today, I think there is a realization out there that there would be no return to the old type educational system. And the new stages that are awaiting us is a hybrid educational system, a combination of online and offline resources and opportunities in education. In future, we're also planning to carry out interviews, have focus and group discussions, focus group and discussions, and to investigate deeper into innovative practices. And after we get the final results, we are going to use the results to elaborate a special training module for teachers, then conduct the training, and then also to develop policy recommendations. We are targeting at collective knowledge, collective action, identification of innovative models of distance education in collaboration with all the actors in the educational process. So we want to really apply a participatory approach and discuss all these issues with our colleagues in order to elaborate the recommendations and models that would be later on used in all the countries. This is briefly what we wanted to present, again, as we were limited in time, and we will be happy to answer your questions if you have any. And I wanted also to let you know that on October 14, we are going to have an official presentation of this project for our stakeholders. This is going to be a hybrid presentation carried out both online and offline. So if you want to attend, please let us know. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jyldyz. Thank you, Almagul. And now we have time for a couple of questions. So colleagues, do you have any questions? You can actually write your questions in the chat box, or you can use the raise your hand function, and I will unmute you. Or we can actually keep the questions towards the end and when include them in the discussion. Then maybe we should listen to the next presentation now, and then we will address all the questions all together. Okay, I think Mamura has a question. Yes, please. Somebody had a question. But please don't forget to unmute yourself if you ask a question. Just give me a second, sorry. I think I have unmuted you. So from my side, you have been unmuted, but you have to unmute yourself as well. Yes, and there is a question in the chat. When are you going to present the final results of the project? Could you please repeat once again? Okay, let's move to our colleagues from Kazakhstan, to Assel, and then we will address all the questions to all the presenters all together. Hello, dear colleagues, can you see my presentation on the screen? Can you hear me? Yes, we can see and hear you and your presentation, but please try to, okay, yes, to use the full screen function. Dear colleagues, let me make a presentation on a project dedicated to the research of the informational culture of the youth in Kazakhstan amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We actually applied for the project back in 2019, but when the project was approved in 2020, we already had the pandemic, and this topic became even more relevant, and we had a chance to investigate into the issue of how the consumption of information amongst the youth changes amid the pandemic. So I am an assistant professor of a university in Kazakhstan. I represent this project. This is a result of a group work. This is a project funded by the Committee for Science under the Ministry of Education of Kazakhstan, and this is a project for 2020 to 2022. So again, this is a grant for young researchers. So why did we choose that particular topic? So because today the digitalization of the today's educational system actually calls for investigation of the changes and big impact it has on the young people, especially amid the pandemic that has seriously affected different spheres of our society, and especially in terms of the restrictions to prevent the spread of the pandemic that have resulted in the changes in the lives, work and personal lives of all the people. And so in order to reflect the situation, I have shared data here about the changes in IT skills and knowledge among children aged 6 to 15 years. So you can see the dynamics for the years 2012, 2014, 2016, 18, and 20. And we can actually say about the constant increased trend, and we can predict that the coverage of IT skills and the IT literacy is going to still increase. We can see the increased number of computer users, like for instance, the computer use percentage was almost 77 in 2018, whereas in 2020 it is already over 90. And again, the same actually is true about the internet use. By the way, I believe that the coverage with internet skills is today almost equal in rural areas and in urban areas, unlike it was in the past. And the same again is true about the internet coverage and the users of internet. And of course, this is also related to the fact that children had to use internet to get assignments from teachers, to do their homework, etc. And those children who lived in areas that had a limited internet coverage, of course, they face certain problems with internet access. But in 2020, actually, 2020 was a turning point, yeah, in this sense as well, because a lot was done to actually cover those areas with internet provision as well. And so here you can see the description of our project. So the major goal of our research was to evaluate the level of informational culture and access to information among modern young people in Kazakhstan, evaluation of potential risks and threats, and elaboration of efficient strategies and recommendations to develop IT skills. So we actually covered the students of grades 9 to 11 of secondary schools, colleges, and universities. So a total of about 78,000 people, also teachers and parents, about 16 people more. And actually, we use different methods like collection of the statistical data about the structure and number of different categories of respondents. We also collected some primary sociological information. We carried out focus groups. So what were our objectives? First of all, measuring the impact of the social and geographic factors on IT skills, also some gender distribution of changes, analyze the dependence between the IT culture and skills and the age of our respondents, analyze the impact of professional socialization on the accessibility and availability of IT skills. So what was the major hypothesis? So we believe that most representatives of the young generation lacked some systemic skills, systemic IT and information culture skills that very frequently opened opportunities for negative informational impact on the young people, deteriorated the quality of education. I will not now read out loud the entire slide. So I want to say that we identified certain organizations that we covered with our research, and we actually covered about 115 secondary schools, also some universities and colleges, as I said before. The total number of respondents that we surveyed was about 2,500, and actually our research and survey really confirmed our major hypothesis about the majority of representatives of the younger generation demonstrating lack of systemic skills, systemic information cultures and skills, the reasons are actually lacking the efficiency of informational education, IT education, and educational facilities. And again, there we identified both some infrastructure related as well as subjective or personal reasons for that. Also, we identified certain gender-based differences in IT skills. Like, for instance, young men seem to be more oriented at acquiring this IT skills also because they are more involved in gaming. And as to the age dependency, I would say that students have better in IT skills than, for instance, school children. Also, the language of education turned out to be a factor, again, information and IT culture increases amongst the respondents from professional colleges, occupational education institutions, and especially in higher education institutions in universities. I know that my time is already up. So I would like to share this data. This is the frequency of using the information from the internet. When preparing for the lessons, and again differentiated by teachers and students. So you can see the sources of information. And the major sources are presentations from the internet, TV programs, etc. And here you can see the time spent during the day on the internet. And we can see that most of the respondents spent over 6 hours on the internet. And here are the skills of referring to the obtained information. So about 50% of teachers believe that they can use the obtained information and refer to it really well, and about 60% of students believe they can do it really well. And these are the critical thinking skills teachers and students. About 50% of teachers and 60% of students believe that they really have good critical thinking skills. These are the skills of transforming and editing information. So students believe that these skills are good, whereas mostly teachers believe that their skills are satisfactory. Now, Assel, you have only 2 minutes for your wrap up. So in general, we can say that this research identified certain problems. Specifically, we found out that our kids are really skilled in using applications, games, etc., but they do not think about cybersecurity. They do not think about using internet for gaining practical and useful knowledge. They do not think about any copyright for music, for books, movies, etc. So it seems to be a more systemic problem, a problem of the education system in general in the country. So there is a lot to do about it.
Thank you very much, Assel. I think you've touched upon many subjects which are relevant to other countries. And I propose that we continue with our presentations, and we'll have time later to ask a question or two. I'd like to ask our colleague Iva Education Policy Centers to speak.
Can you all hear me? Okay, I will now share my presentation. You can see it, right? Okay. So hello, everyone. I am Iva from the network of the Education Policy Centers. It is an international network located in Zagreb, Croatia. And I will present to you the data we collected on the policies and measures initiated by the national systems that are intended to mitigate the effects of the COVID-19 on the educational system a year after the outbreak of the pandemic. Not to go into the details, as we are all familiar with the situation that happened in the spring 2020. After the outbreak of the pandemic, many governments were forced to go into full or partial lockdowns. And one of the most frequent measures dealing with stopping the spread of the pandemic was preschool, schools, and university closures, which resulted in abrupt and sudden shift to distance learning formats in the educational systems that they weren't exactly prepared for such abrupt shift, and they were already burdened with other issues and challenges. When this shift happened, educational systems across the world faced many challenges and really relied on the instant reactions from the formal and non-formal institutions. So we have witnessed the cooperation between governments and private sector and non-for-profit sector, all in order to prevent this disruption of the learning process and to try to ensure the participation of all students in the learning process. A year later, after revising the existing data on the effects of the pandemic on the educational system, and after national systems had some time to organize more efficiently, we have decided to explore state or system measures and policies that were targeting different ways of mitigating the effects of the pandemic on the education. And based on the revision of the existing data, we have identified 3 challenges that we wanted to explore further. First are learning gaps as one of the most evident consequences of the school closures that reinforced the existing gaps and created new gaps. We wanted to explore how national systems address the learning gaps and what kind of measures were implemented in order to support school students in tackling this issue. Second challenge we wanted to explore national system reaction was support to students' well-being. We wanted to explore it under three sub-dimensions. We wanted to explore national system support to socio-emotional well-being of students, support to mental health of students, and how national systems ensured provision of equitable and inclusive access to the education. Final challenge we wanted to explore national system reactions was supported by and to teachers and school leaders. And here we wanted to explore how national systems facilitate the ongoing communication with teachers and schools in order to better identify vulnerable students and their challenges and needs, and how did national systems prioritize the well-being of the educational staff. Data was collected through questionnaire inquiring about the state system measures and policies in these earlier mentioned areas in the 15 countries. Here you can see countries that were involved in the research. As you can see, we have many different countries from Estonia and Czech Republic through Serbia, North Macedonia, and countries like Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, etc. And because of these different countries participating, we can't make any generalizations, but we can get a better sense of understanding of these measures and policies across the regions and across the countries that try to mitigate the effects of the pandemic, school closures, and distance learning. Regarding the first challenge, we try to explore national measures addressing learning gaps. We have four subcategories. First are catch-up strategies that are intended to compensate learning gaps, and most of the countries reported that the national system provided different guidelines or instructions for organizing the lessons or classes, while some of the more concrete strategies include summer schools or summer camps and catch-up programs, which usually refers to supplementary classes. Also, some of the countries reported that national systems initiated different projects addressing the learning gap, as well as the adaptation of the relevant educational legislation in order for it to better comply with the new circumstances. Second area are universal design to curricula, and it comes from idea that inclusive systems fulfill each learner's potential by applying universal design to curricula that fulfills each learner's potential. And in sense of this research, we are referring to any measures implemented and initiated by the national systems that try to fulfill each learner's potential in the area of assessment, learning materials, and classes. National systems, as we saw from the results, usually use different guidelines, instructions, or frameworks intended to organize the lessons and better explain the working process, but also most often reported measure was adaptation of the curricula and the assessment process, which also in most cases refers to the national or state exams, which as we understand is really important because it is connected to finishing certain level of education and also entrance to higher level of educations. Third area were non-formal learning activities, which were severely affected by the pandemic. They were severely limited and sometimes even suspended during school closures, but even after school closures. And most of the countries reported a lack of national system support for such activities during the reporting period. As I said, in some of the countries, these activities were even after the reopening of the schools still restricted, or it was suggested for them to be held online if possible. Final area under this challenge is after-school tutoring, and most countries reported some form of after-school tutoring, and also it is usually connected to the final grades of school, so to the process of graduation or moving to the higher educational level, such as university entrance exams. But also some countries reported that national systems initiated and implemented some form of tutoring that was focused on the vulnerable groups. Second challenge we wanted to explore national system measures and policies was ensuring the well-being of students. First dimension was national systems measure that are supporting socio-emotional well-being of students. And most of the countries reported that national systems published different guidelines, instructions, and protocols that in some measure refer to support of student socio-emotional well-being. But also it was evident from the data that the role of school psychologists or other support specialists in schools was recognized as extremely important under these circumstances, as well as the role of teachers, because we had this shift where we didn't focus only on the academic achievement, but also on the well-being of students. Many countries also reported that the national systems provided various forms of materials such as videos, platforms, and hotlines in order to support socio-emotional well-being of students, and also that in some of the countries there was ongoing or already implemented research on the topic of well-being of students, but also teachers. Second dimension under this challenge was national system measures that were targeting support of the mental health of the students. And here as well, most of the countries reported that their national systems provided different guidelines, instructions, and protocols for schools and teachers. It tended to provide psychosocial help for students and also different tools via videos, platforms, and hotlines as well intended to provide professional psychosocial help for students. Also, some of the countries reported that the topic of mental health was recognized and in different forms implemented in professional development of the school staff. Final dimension here we wanted to explore was national system measures that were focused on providing equitable and inclusive access to extra services for the vulnerable groups of students. And most countries reported that national systems, also often in cooperation with international and national NGOs, provided cash transferred food and hygienic packages, learning materials, devices, and internet access, but also not only for this one-time support. Some of the countries also reported that national systems implemented child allowances and scholarships in order to help and to support families during this time of emergency. Final challenge we wanted to explore here was national systems measures that were intended to ensure support by and to teachers and school leaders. Regarding the facilitating ongoing communication with teachers and school leaders to better identify vulnerable students' challenges and needs, most of the countries reported that their measure usually include different forms of guidelines and manuals that provide usually general advices for schools, teachers and school leaders that they should all work together to support vulnerable groups. and they try to support school staff, so teachers and school leaders, with professional development, but usually in the area of the development of the ICT skills, so not so much in a sense of better identifying vulnerable students or their challenges and needs. Regarding the prioritizing the well-being of the educational staff, most of the countries reported that these measures are usually, in most cases, focused on physical health, and that means in regard to anti-COVID measures, meaning providing sanitary products, regular testing, or giving teaching staff priority in the vaccination process. Then it usually includes some form of material or financial support, such as increase in salaries or transportation compensations. Again, professional development, but usually or mostly focused on the developing the ICT skills. And finally, only some of the countries reported that national systems organized some form of psychological assistance to teachers via helplines, e-counseling, and chat. So to sum up, data presented shows that measures and policies implemented in the national systems are usually in a form of non-binding guidelines or instructional documents, or on the other hand, they are some form of upscaling of the existing practices that are already being implemented in their domain, such as professional development, which is usually under the agencies or ministries, and social services. So what I mentioned in the area of providing provisions such as child allowances, etc. When addressing learning gaps, most of the countries reported system measures that are focused on guidelines and frameworks for adjusting curricula or assessment process. But on the other hand, non-formal and school level activities received much less support by the system. Regarding the ensuring the well-being of students, most countries reported that system measures were often focused on providing equitable and inclusive access to extra services for vulnerable groups and providing teachers with guidelines and resources on supporting students' well-being. And finally, regarding the support by national systems to teachers and school leaders, we saw from the results that it is usually focused on anti-pandemic measures, guidelines and financial compensations, but not as much as perhaps it should be to the well-being of teacher and their psychological assistance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iva, for such a broad overview and information about the situation in different countries. And I support your last comment. In Germany, for example, there's more of a focus on supporting the education process, but not so much on the well-being and health of teachers and students. We'll return to this when we have more time for discussion. And I think we should move right on to Tamta Grigolia from Georgia. And then after that, begin our joint discussion. So, Tamta.
Thank you so much. Is my voice okay? Okay.
Yes.
So the presentation is okay also, yes? Thank you so much. Greeting from Georgia. I'm Tamta Grigolia from the Ministry of Education and Science of Georgia, mainly Division of National Curriculum and Educational Resources. At first, I want to thank the organizers of this conference. I'm glad that have opportunity to take part in it. I hope that in the future you will offer us so many interesting topics, because it's really significant to share the experience of different countries. Now about presentations. Sorry, it was on the last page. Just a moment. Yes. Here is I want to emphasize that I'm not a computer technology specialist. Our department has an expert in this field, but I will try to tell you in general what the situation is in the field of computer technology in Georgian public schools and what special significance it acquired during the pandemic. Strange as it may seem today, the teacher's profession is as high-tech as, for example, a doctor, an architect, a scientist, and others. Technologies, on the one hand, help the teacher to conduct distance lessons, participate in online meetings and discussions, express their opinion, share experiences with colleagues despite the limitations associated with the new coronavirus. On the other hand, there are fewer and fewer professions where it's possible to get a job without a computer. Consequently, it's impossible to prepare a student for a future life without computer equipment. In the current pandemic period, the transition to distance learning has become vital for computer skills for both adults and adolescents as well from an early age. For many children, the computer is a kind of toy and entertaining device. It's important for students to understand that the computer helps a person to do different kinds of work. For it, they themselves have to do some work using computer equipment, understand the possibilities, and be able to use them properly. Of course, moderation is needed when using the computer for children. It's good if the students spend time with the computer to this advantage, learn something new, or acquire the skills needed for a future life. The digital classroom that a teacher can use today is a kind of electronic copy of a real classroom. A number of learning and work processes are available in the digital space today. The teacher can use various electronic platforms to transfer the ongoing processes in the classroom to the online space, invite students to the digital classroom, manage the lesson process, easily exchange information with the students using cloud services. For example, it could be OneDrive or Google Drive, to create a digital repository of information, a kind of digital closet in which the teacher places the information intended for the student. To create a space in which students in turn uploaded the tasks performed by them, the projects implemented, and also, very important, calendar. Parents can view the required information on a calendar by the computer or a mobile phone, maybe which is created by a teacher, by a student. Once an electronic platform has been selected for the digital classroom, both students and teachers' personal accounts need to be activated. Personal account, on the one hand, it's a personal space of a student in which he can place both educational resource and any personal files. Also, personal account allows teachers to group students into classes or any kind of groups. The student can engage in the activity assigned to her through a personal account. Creating a digital classroom requires selecting a platform that will enable to the teacher to create and manage a digital classroom. The Ministry of Education and Science of Georgia has offered public school teachers an e-learning environment developed by Microsoft in the form of Microsoft Office 365 Education. However, there are other electronic platforms that can be used in the field of education. Nowadays, the use of this platform is usually free for schools. If a teacher, student, or parent has questions about Office 365, they can contact the Educational Management Information System hotline or ask a question in a group created on Facebook. Some kind of noise is coming, and is my voice okay? Please confirm.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Some kind of noises are coming.
No, it's very clear.
It's very clear. Okay, thank you so much. Teachers can also use other resources that are convenient for them. Maybe it's Outlook, OneDrive, Teams, Forms, and many other useful resources. Accordingly, we can distinguish three main components of a digital classroom: communication system, a program that communicates between teacher and students, for example, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, etc. Information repository, a common workplace where students, assessment, projects implemented, learning resources will be gathered. And the calendar, a shared calendar that will be able to both students and teachers as well. And we can use as Google Calendar or a calendar built into Microsoft Teams as well. So in distance education itself, we can distinguish two main approaches: synchronous teaching, which means conducting a lesson online when the teacher conducts the lesson and the students attend the lessons through any software, and they see teacher in the so-called live mode, and asynchronous teaching, which involves video files prepared in advance by the teacher. In this case, students can view the pre-recorded lesson at any time convenient for them. Of course, it's good when the teacher uses mixed method in distance learning. For example, pre-record the term of the task as a video. The task is uploaded to the class OneDrive, then we'll share with student, while during the lesson we'll focus directly on the discussion related to the assessment or the assignments presented by the students. The distance lesson offers many new opportunities for teachers and students. It's possible to prepare video guides in which this or that lesson topic will be presented. The teacher can prepare a bank of educational materials together with the class, which will be useful for the teacher for future lessons. Cloud services such as OneDrive allow teachers to store fairly large amounts of information through cloud services. And electronic resources used in the teaching learning process with us are the following: interactive alphabet. The digital education resource interactive alphabet is intended for elementary school, mainly first grade students. Through this electronic resource, children can independently strengthen their knowledge of the Georgian alphabet. The resource shows the children the letters of the Georgian alphabet, explains their sounds, check how correctly the child has drawn the corresponding letters. This resource will also be useful for those who want to learn the Georgian language, the Georgian alphabet. For example, I think it's a great resource for foreigners. Vocabulary. It's continuation of the interactive alphabet. This digital resource is also intended for elementary school students. Children can assemble words from letters. Following resource is syllabication. This app also helps children to overcome the alphabet period. The student works on spelling words and assembling words from syllables, learning through play. This resource is intended for elementary school students from first grade to fourth. It can be used for formal and non-formal education purposes as well. Using the resource will help children develop competencies such as creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, use of digital technologies, communication, collaboration, etc. The resource has an educational purpose. It can be used effectively both in a separate subject as well as in the integrated teaching learning process. Educational chatbots. Bots, unlike robots, don't have a material shell. They are just programs. One of the types of bots is the chatbot. Chatbots are called human chat programs. Such a program can answer a question and conduct a dialogue like a human. Chatbots created for them help adults develop online communication skills. And about the national curriculum, before the 2021...
Я хотела сказать, еще у вас 5 минут, что у нас тоже
I wanted to say that you have 5 minutes left. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but you have 5 more minutes before discussion begins. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's enough for my presentation. Thank you, Julia. And before the 2021 academic year, according to the national curriculum standards, the subject information and communication technologies was provided in first grade as an elective subject and fifth and seventh grade. And according to the changes made in the national curriculum, the new subject computer technologies in the second, third, and fourth grade of elementary school has become mandatory in all Georgian language public schools, which means it's continuous teaching at the elementary level from first to sixth grade. In the near future, it is planned to develop and introduce a new standard for the subject for fifth to ninth grade, and hope that the introduction of this subject will be successful, because the pandemic has once again shown us its need and necessity. Thank you for your attention.
Manya. Thank you very much, Tamta. Thank you for opening the window, so to speak, to show how Georgia's education process has been adapted during the COVID pandemic. I think we should move on to the discussion, and I'd like to begin discussion with some thoughts and some general questions to our presenters and to the audience. And I'd like to share a bit of experience from Germany. In Germany, we have a federal system, and within the federal system, we have a very diverse number of different subjects and of great diversity among schools. And this diversity is often is usually a good thing, but because of the pandemic, communications between schools and experience sharing between different divisions of education has become very important. I think I don't think every school needs to develop their own approach. Maybe a single approach could be adapted then to the to different schools. So my question for the audience is, where do you see the possibilities of creating a kind of synergistic cooperation between these school bodies? That's the first question I'd like to ask. Maybe my colleagues from
Maybe our colleagues from Kyrgyzstan, because you presented first. Yes, that's an interesting question about available materials for education, for the online education. Of course, that was really a pressing issue in many countries, especially in countries like Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Mongolia, where we conducted our survey, because there were really very few resources, available resources at that moment for online education. Because again, if you compare the availability of quality online education resources in the English language, you can see that there are a lot of them available, whereas there are very few materials in the Russian or national languages. Of course, it's clear that there are many online English language online materials that are available for a certain fee, but even during the pandemic, some of the websites made their materials available for free, again, as a kind of a support. And in our countries, we had to act really quick to generate this online resources very quickly, very fast, and even those video lessons and online materials that were produced and with the support of donors, with the support of the government funding, had to be still uploaded online. And it also took some time, though we did it really quick. You know, some teachers were uploading their lessons themselves, so there was some discord and like disagreement between the materials. But at least we could do that, they could do that. But now it's time to turn this quantity into quality as well. So every teacher should try his or her best to fulfill the task that they are facing now, but we need to make materials available to them so that they would use them. Okay, colleagues, anybody willing to add?
Да, Чинара, Маркулова и Тамта сейчас, следующий даст.
Yes, Ina, and then Tamta. Chinar, I'm unmuting you now, Chinar. And then you, Tamta. So, okay, while we are unmuting Chinar, maybe you, Tamta, would be first to comment.
Okay, thank you. I only add one task that in Georgia also it was not easy to make a lot of resources for teachers and for students. We needed to translate a lot of English materials and materials from another languages. But I want to highlight that at the Ministry of Education, there is a very great project and its name Reform of the General Education Project. We are collaborating with Estonian experts, also with different non-governmental organizations, and take into consideration that there was a lot of difficulties with the teachers because it's not easy to make changes very fast, and we took a lot of leaders. People who are helping teachers are going to the school, or they are using online, and they are making their best to help teachers to translate these materials, and not to be this change about process very difficult. Of course, we have all difficulties. It's not easy, but the situation now in Georgia has solved. Thank you so much for listening.
Чинара Умуркулова, вы можете включить свой микрофон?
Chinara Onkulova, now you can unmute yourself.
Если пока не получается, тогда я даю слово.
Okay, then I will give the floor to Jyldyz Doolbekova. Yes, I just wanted to share about the focus of our project. Our project focus was to investigate the innovations and new approaches identified for distant and online education. And I just wanted to share with the audience here about that. Because, of course, all the countries have faced similar trends, similar gaps, I would say, gaps in technical education, in the availability of knowledge and skills, etc. So we had gaps, and gaps, but also there have been some opportunities opened up to get to know some new approaches, new discoveries, I would say, in the organization of the educational process, in the approach to educational process, in terms of capacity building, because we could actually analyze the approaches that are used at schools, used at universities, how the teachers, the future teachers, are educated at universities, how to build their IT skills, for instance, better, so that they would use these skills later when teaching at schools. So there have been a lot of discoveries and opportunities again, and I am going to drop my email address now in the chat box, and I would ask those who are present here at this session to, would you please share with us your experiences, your gaps and challenges, as well as your discoveries? What kind of partnerships did you form? What kind of partnerships turned out to be efficient? Did you have any grassroots innovations? I mean, innovations initiated by the teachers community, etc., that helped you to reorganize the process. It seemed that Nino Petriashvili raised her hand, and yes, I just wanted to add to what my colleague from the Ministry of Education said. Mai Pliadze and myself are going to speak on the fourth session today, but now I wanted to share how things were organized at universities, because I work, I am the head of a 60 credit program for the training of teachers, and again, amid the pandemic, we actually expanded our training program, our curricula, adding a lot of subjects for developing IT skills of the teachers, because we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. The pandemic has shown that we should be ready for pandemics. This virus is still on, the pandemic is still there, and we still have a lot of new cases in Georgia. and people die on the daily basis. So the figures are still high. Everybody is talking about the fifth wave of this pandemic. So we realized that we need to train our teachers and to give them skills that might be needed for a long period from now on. And so we have a special center for teachers capacity building, for training and retraining of teachers, and we closely cooperated with them. We organized a lot of webinars, again choosing topics to address relevant issues and challenges that the schools faced. Of course, the ministry did a lot for that. Like, for instance, the Microsoft Teams program, they got it translated into the Georgian language, but not all the teachers could use Teams, Microsoft Teams, I mean, because there were some teachers from high mountain villages who could not use the computers. They didn't know how to use computers or how to organize online lessons. And the ministry had some trainers visiting distant villages and communities and helping, supporting the teachers locally. And of course, the teachers community was split. There were some people who were more literate, IT literate people, for whom the process, of course, went easier. And there were those who had serious problems with that. And we now are going to implement a new project that is called Teachers House Online, which is actually the Teachers Capacity Building Center online. And we are going to continue building these skills and the capacity that the teachers are going to need in future. Thank you very much, Nino, for your comment, for having shared your experience. And I think it's a very interesting experience. So it seems that Chinara has problems unmuting herself. Maybe, Chinara, you could write your answer or comment in the chat box. And I think what Jyldyz mentioned is also very important about the partners and the key partners and which partnerships turned out to be most efficient from the international, in terms of international experience. And we have colleagues from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan who organized an NGO to actually improve the literacy, the IT literacy of those kids who had problems with the access to technologies and online access. And I think there are two organizations, Complete Act and Dilim Kigi. Maybe I don't remember their names correctly, but that would be interesting, I think, for you to get to know which NGOs worked in Kazakhstan on that. And Iva, maybe I should ask you again now to share about which of the partners supported you and which partnerships turned out to be most efficient amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Iva, this is the question to you.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Iva, could you please unmute yourself?
Sorry. Thank you for your question. I just have to say that this mapping also was in some way inspired, as we saw from when the first outbreak happened, that mostly because of the way of organizing and functioning, the most immediate response was from the NGO and non-for-profit sector that supported teachers with materials, help them to adjust, to provide different, to share experiences, good practices, etc. And which is also reasonable, and we also, because of that, wanted to see what happened the year after, when as national systems are bigger and more, let's say, structured organization, where such fast reactions aren't possible. We wanted to see if they managed to organize more effectively. But as I said, we are at NEPT's international network that has many different organizations, from the NGOs to the public institutes and the research institutes. So we have, let's say, we are lucky to have different types of organizations in our network that helped us gather this data. And during the COVID first outbreak, and now after that, and from our perspective, this cooperation between different types of organization is really important, and sharing of knowledge, sharing of experiences and practices is something that we saw in these times of crisis, and when immediate reactions are necessary, is really valuable. Also because of that in such situation, we often, those who are, as I said, already in vulnerable positions, are always affected even more. Colleagues mentioned teachers and also children who are from remote parts and can't participate in distance learning. We also have in the situations when materials are translated, they are usually translated to the main language. So those from, let's say, minorities or migrants, they have trouble participating in the educational process. So I would say that this cooperation between different types of organizations, different level of organization is really important. And we saw it here, unfortunately, in this crisis. But I think that we can all learn something from this lesson, and in the future try to deepen our cooperation and learn from each other, no matter of where are we working. We are all working for the common good, I would say. Thank you.
Большое спасибо, Ива. И сейчас у нас еще осталось 5 минут. И, может быть, я хотела задать такой глобальный тоже вопрос нашим коллегам. Вот вы на основе своего...
Thank you very much, Eva. And my last question to you, colleagues. Again, based on your experience, what would you recommend to educational facilities? Again, as Nino told us, the situation might change, the pandemic might turn out to be persisting. So what would you recommend to the educational facilities for the future? What lessons you have learned to share for the future? Well, as we were interviewing and surveying different schools, we saw how much depends on the school management, school principals. So our recommendation would be to closer work to the administrative staff of schools, of those people who are good managers, who are good organizers at schools. Like, for instance, we had one school who were really prompt and advanced in shifting to online education. And even after they got back to offline education, they still kept that education partially hybrid. So they continued giving some assignments to students online, to ask for some online homework, etc. and they kept their quality, unlike other schools, which shows that if the management is good, if the strategy is appropriate, then the quality would not suffer. The quality would stay and even improve. And this is an observation that we did during the project, because we actually came across different cases during our survey. Some schools were telling us, you know, we were so unprepared, our teachers were not skilled, we didn't have internet access, we only could hope for the courses and trainings for teachers that were provided by the ministry. But there were different schools who said, well, we involved some good guys from the IT community. The IT community turned out to be very responsive, and they volunteered to support teachers. They were open, by the way, to cooperating with teachers. They even recorded some webinars to develop IT skills of the teachers. They invited experts, so they were open to cooperate with the teachers community. And what was needed from the teachers community was just the willingness to reach out to such IT community activists and to ask for help and to use this help efficiently. And I think that this is the recommendation to strengthen the administrative capacities and the managerial capacities of the schools and facilities themselves. Okay, thank you, Tamta, or maybe Iva, would you like to add anything?
Thank you. Only one task I want to tell you that now we are a collaborative project with UNICEF, Estonia and Georgia, and it's based on the curriculum implementation models. And it seems as that this collaborative give us a lot of experience, and the overall objective of the proposed project is to improve the quality of general education for children of Georgia through capacity building of Georgia educators. The expected result of this program is to enhance maybe capacity of teachers and educators of Georgia in modern child-centered general education, including methodologies for distant teaching and learning. And also what is important, and I want to advise from our experience, that it's very significant to teach at school a subject digital literacy. It's main, I think it contains main issues because pandemic shows us how important it is. And also I wish that all regions, highlanded regions mainly, to be covered with good internet, because during this period not good quality internet and sometimes not internet interrupted these processes. And the last but not the least, what I want to say, that in Georgia now the schools are open, children are going face to face. All of us, children, students, teachers, administrative, are happy and hope that we will defeat the coronavirus very soon and keep on this situation. Wish you all healthy and success, and once again, thank you for this interesting conference.
Спасибо большое, Тамта. Iva,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tamta. Would you like to add anything, Iva?
I would just like to thank you for the opportunity to present these results, and also to all colleagues. I really appreciate hearing about all these great initiatives that are dealing with the challenges that pandemic is facing on the educational systems, and thank you all.
Действительно, было очень интересно послушать,
Yes,
как
indeed, it was
развивалась,
really very
этот
interesting
процесс
to
развивался
hear how this
в наших
situation
странах,
changed
в
and
других
how
странах.
things developed in other countries. And I also want to thank you for inviting us to this platform, and it has been really very useful for us to have had this chance to speak, to listen to others. We could identify a lot of common problems, and I do hope that we would have also common solutions to some of these, and I think together we would be more successful on our way towards our major goal to ensure the quality education and to avoid deterioration of the quality during the pandemic and during similar force majeure situations that might occur in future. And also our goal is the comprehensive coverage with education. Well, now for the wrap up, I want to thank all the presenters who have presented today. Thank you very much for sharing your experience, and I want to thank all the participants. Thank you for being with us, and I just want to say that we are going to have the second block of sessions soon. The conference is not over, and by the way, we are going to have Assel Myrzakhmetova speaking about the access to digital tools, electronic tools of education. So we would be great to see you there as well. So thank you all and see you soon.